They have gotten me to the point where I can say now that, hey, my name is Toni Washington. I am the fire chief of the city of Decatur, and I am good at what I do. I'm going to share because in order for me to be great, I need for them to be great. I always encourage women to join the team as we all shatter this glass ceiling that's been in place for so long.
Welcome, listeners, to Taking Her Lead. This is Trace Kerr.
And this is Joshua Everett Mayer.
And my dad is the whole reason why we had this conversation with Chief Toni Washington, the City of Decatur Fire Chief. When I was talking to him about the podcast a few weeks ago, he said, you must find a firefighter. And boy, did we.
Yeah. Wow. This is an incredible interview. Toni is just an incredible person. And so we are really excited for you guys to hear this. Here we go. Chief Toni Washington on Taking Her Lead. Toni, welcome to Taking Her Lead.
Thanks for having me.
We are just very excited to chat for the next hour or so. A little less if if you need to run. I know things are intense for you right now, but we can be flexible. Tracy, do you want to say anything?
Well, I just wanted to welcome you, Toni, to Taking Her Lead. I know I have been super excited for the opportunity to talk with you.
Oh, great. I'm excited also.
Well, let's jump in. Toni, if you would chat with us a little bit about your story, your journey getting into leadership. If you would start there, that would be great.
Sure. So I don't have the traditional story of the average firefighter. It was never my dream or my childhood aspiration to be a firefighter. I kind of stumbled into the job after I graduated from college. I was still a little bit unsure of what I wanted to do. I did a little bit of outside sales and I didn't think that was for me. So I was still kind of searching for the true profession. And taking a job with the State Fire Marshal's office in Georgia, I had the opportunity to work with a lot of the local fire departments. And there is when I realized, it's something that I may like. It kind of pushed me into it because I was an at-will employee. So when we changed commissioners, I found myself out of a job and I needed a job. Mm-hmm. And because so many of the fire departments at that time were still out recruiting women because, the percentage of women in the fire service is still very low. Mm-hmm. And at that time, it was much lower. So they were out recruiting. And when I found myself out of a job, I was like, okay, well, let me take one of them up on their offer of joining the fire service. So I went through the whole testing and recruiting process, and I was hired as one of the first 7 women in the city of East Point, Georgia. That's in the metro Atlanta area, not far from where I work at now.
Yeah.
And from there, I knew that I had to start out at the bottom as a firefighter, but going into it, my aspiration, my goal was always to be the fire chief.
Oh.
I went in knowing that I wanted to be the fire chief. So I worked very, very hard over the next few years to make sure that my dream actually came true. There is a position for everybody on the fire scene and on the fire truck, but I knew that I did not want to stay as a firefighter.
Why did you not want to stay?
So because, again, I'd gone to college, my parents had some aspirations of me and they paid all that money for me to go to college. So they wanted me to do a little bit more. So they always pushed me. They always pushed me to do more. And again, as a young lady, I was still into hair and nails and, being on the back of the fire truck. And at this time we had open cab. when I say open cab, the seat that the firefighter sat in was open air.
Wow.
Now we have enclosed cabs, but at that time we had open cabs. And, I like getting my hair done. I like getting my nails done, and being on the back of that fire truck with that wind blowing, that just was not for me. So I knew that in order to get inside, I had to promote. So again, that was another motivator for me to say, okay, you have to do what you need to do to progress up the wheel, promote up the wheel, up the ladder to reach your goal even faster. And I say a lot of times that, I felt like I was on a fast track program because as I was mapping out my path, I decided that, I needed to go back and get my master's degree.
Mm-hmm.
So I got my master's degree as a firefighter. And, there was a lot of talk about, why are you getting your master's degree to ride on the back of a fire truck? And I would tell people, because one day I'm going to be your boss. And they would just laugh. They would laugh. So again, those are all things that were motivators for me. And, being in the fire service, a lot of times there's a lot of rules, there's a lot of regulations. And there were some things that went on that I did not like. And I knew the only way to change them would be if I was in the top position as the fire chief.
Mm-hmm.
So I worked towards that. So I stumbled across this awesome career that I call the fire service that I love so dearly. I just stumbled into it, and it has been great over the last 27 years.
Wow. And for the last 11, you've been the chief at the Decatur Fire Department, correct?
Yes, I have been the
Yes.
chief for 11 years. And usually the lifespan of a fire chief is really about 3 to 5 years. And 5 years is usually a lot. So for me to be in this position for 11 years, it says a lot to me.
Yeah.
Most fire chiefs, they wait until the end of their career, or most people wait until the end of the career to get into these fire chiefs jobs because, again, traditionally we don't stay long in them. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Huh. Is that because someone, well, I don't know. Why do you think it is that that people wait till later in their career? Just
because when you reach the level of fire chief, you're at will employee and you're not protected anymore.
Oh.
So that means that you can be terminated just because.
Yeah.
They don't have to have a reason to get rid of you when you're an at-will employee. So most people like to at least get to the retirement phase or stage in their career before they take the fire chief's job, because if it doesn't work, they still have their retirement to live off. They're not really counting on their salary as the fire chief.
Oh, wow.
So you've taken a bit of a risk.
Yeah, I took a bit of a risk. Not really because that was my choice. I was almost forced into it. Right before, in 2008, I want to say June of 2008, the initial city that I worked for as a firefighter that I kind of grew up in, they went through a very hard financial crisis. And they did a reduction in workforce. And little did I know, although I was providing a lot of the statistical information for them to determine how to move forward, little did I know that I was included in that reduction. I found out with everybody else that, okay, we let probably about 50 firefighters go. Wow. And I was one of the 2 that was let go at the very top of the ladder. So it really forced me to move to the fire chief's position or even start applying for the fire chief's position. Because I will say that when I left there as the deputy chief. Mm-hmm. And I pretty much decided, okay, this fire chief thing, I don't know if I'm cut out for this. I was watching my fire chief in action. I was privileged to a lot of information. I just saw a lot of things happen, and I was like, okay, the deputy chief may be the best job for me. So I really started saying, okay, I don't know if I actually want to be a fire chief now. And I got kind of comfortable. And I don't know if it was just the wake up call for me to say, okay, you're not going to stop here. We have bigger and better aspirations for you, for your life. And so, we're going to push you out there. So I found myself out of a job in June 2008. And when that happened, I took a few months to just rest and, get myself together. And then I started applying for jobs. And the first fire chief's position that I applied for was the city of Decatur. And I got that job at the end of the year, which was about December 2008. And I started actually January of 2009.
Wow. Do you happen to know how many people applied and how many women applied?
So I did hear that there were an excess of 75 people that applied. I think that they narrowed it down to 12. From there, it went to 4. And then I think they interviewed 4 of us. So out of the 4, and I was the only female, and I think the only African American.
Wow.
Not surprising, but still, wow.
Yeah. And now you've got, so your deputy chief, Vera Morrison,
Yes.
and your assistant chief, Nanetta, is it Violante?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So you have the only fire department in the nation with an all-female command staff.
Yes. So I have the only fire department in the world that's led by 3 women.
That's fantastic.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep. And it wasn't by design, and it wasn't really till I want to say about 3 years ago that we really realized that we were unique.
Oh.
And everybody said, "Oh, was that your vision?" I was like, "No, that wasn't my vision. It just happened." And I feel that one of the things that we have provided in Decatur is the fair opportunity to have a level playing ground for everybody that puts their name in the hat for various positions. And I like to say that the cream rose to the top, and that's why that's why we have what we have now.
How long have your deputies been in their positions?
They have been there for 3.5 years now.
Okay. Yeah. I was just clarifying. Do you think this is just a slight departure, but I really want to know?
Sure.
Do you think that there are changes that could happen, or you have already put in place to make firefighting on boots on the ground more accessible to women, particularly in consideration of just physical stature difference, and that it has been modeled for men for so long? Can you speak to that at all?
Yes, I can tell you that in Decatur, we do things different, and a lot of my colleagues, my peers, really think I'm crazy for this. But we have really, in Decatur, we have really tried to take out any barriers that prevent anyone that's interested from competing in the process of being hired. And I say that as because, yes, we may do a entry exam, entry written exam, but we don't do a physical agility. We have removed our physical agility.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So because you can make a firefighter, and I know that because I've been there. Of course, they have to have a few key elements. They have to have some upper body strength, and they can't be claustrophobic. So once you remove those things, you can teach somebody how to be a firefighter. And a lot of it is coordination and training you how to do the job. And for us, and I look back and I say, for us to evaluate people or have an interest exam or entry exam, trying to see who can do things the fastest when you have not received that training, can be very unfair for women, well, for minorities, period. So that's one thing we've done in the city of Decatur is we've removed that physical agility that most departments use to I guess place or evaluate their candidates for hire.
That's just fascinating. Are there just one more follow-up question and then we can get back on track?
Oh, it's okay. It's okay.
Fascinating. Can you give an example of specific changes that you've made to firefighters approaching a live fire and coordinating extinguishing that fire so that women of smaller stature can be a central part of that?
Okay.
Have you had to make changes along those lines?
So I have not had to make changes because what we found that is when you go through training as a firefighter, everything is done in a pair. You don't do anything by yourself. Okay. So we operate in pairs. And what we found that when you send somebody through the training, you teach them how to do it, you help them with their coordination in performing the task at hand, then they can do it. So I don't have to make adjustments there. All the women that are employed with the city of Decatur can do the job.
Yeah.
And I have not had to make any provisions in order for them to be effective as firefighters.
So have they improved gear at all to be like not just a small man size for a woman to have to wear?
So in the fire service, we have standard gear sizes. And then we have another alternative that usually costs a little bit more money.
Of course.
And the gear does cost a lot of money. And it typically takes about 45 days to make the gear. Most departments just buy stock gear, what's on the shelf, and you have to fit into it. What we do in Decatur is, we fit our firefighters. So they come in and measure them personally, and they make their gear based on their stature.
Nice.
So that helps in the gear. Now, I will say that the gear is still bulky. It's still difficult for small stature people to maneuver in. That's not going to change. But I think the one thing that we have helped with was to at least have the gear where it's measured to their specification or made to the person's specification. Things are getting better where they're offering more things like the gloves. When I first started, it was small, medium, large, and the gloves and the fingertips were huge. I needed a small, but still, they didn't fit my hand. So for me performing work as a firefighter, it was very difficult because I had to wear gloves and I had these gloves that didn't fit. There are some manufacturers that have tailored some of the personal protective equipment for women, which is awesome. It's not that many.
Yeah.
And it may not be the uniform company of choice for each municipality may not have the option for women's gear. So it just really all depends on who you use and can they do it, and are you willing to pay more money to ensure that, all of your personnel have the proper fitting gear.
But it sounds like, I would imagine with proper fitting gear, you increase retention, you reduce risk.
Yes.
There's a whole bunch of things that fall in place.
Yeah, you're so much more efficient.
Yeah.
You can get the job done faster. You reduce your rate of error and risk to the firefighters because, a lot of times you can be injured because you don't have proper fitting equipment.
Yeah.
So again, proper fitting gear does a whole lot, for both sides, for the people that we are serving and the people that are risking their lives every day to do the job.
Yeah. If I ever become a firefighter, I think I want to work for you.
Absolutely. Come on. Come on.
I'll hold you to that.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness. Trace, you have some thoughts?
Well, yeah. So kind of along the same lines as the gear. I was thinking about, old style fire departments had dormitories where it was just a big room. Everybody slept in that same room. What kind of changes have you made to just even the physical space to make it more accommodating to women?
All right. So when I first started, that's what I had to sleep in was a huge open dormitory. And I think that that was a very eye-opening experience for me. I'll say that because you have to say nice things about it. It was an eye-opening experience. And now all the fire stations that I have in my community, and like most of my counterparts, that the new fire stations that are being built, we are creating spaces where firefighters have privacy. There may be a partition, there may be individual rooms. In my stations, we have individual rooms where there's a bed, there's a desk, you have your lockers, and each firefighter is assigned to a bedroom. You have 3 firefighters assigned to each bedroom because we have 3 shifts: A shift, B shift, and C shift.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the different changes. In addition to the open dormitory, I experienced, there was one restroom for everyone.
Oh no.
So when I came on, I was one of the first 7 hired. So they had to add a lock. So every time I went in the restroom, I had to lock the door.
Yeah.
And of course, if you're in there too long, you got the firefighters knocking at the door. That we had one restroom. If they beat me to the shower, I had to wait, or if I beat them to the shower, then, they not bamming on the doors. So that's another change that we've made. We have individual restrooms, which each restroom has a shower in order for everyone to have privacy.
Have you retrofitted the buildings, or is this mainly because of new buildings?
Yeah, so one building, we have a very old fire station that is over 50 years old. And we actually did a whole remodel to that fire station. And that was one of the fire stations that did have the open dormitory. And they did have 2 restrooms upstairs. They created a restroom for the women. That was a very small area, but it didn't have its own shower. So yes, we gutted the building, and then we redid it with the modern things, and allow all the firefighters to have the privacy that they need.
Right.
Yeah. Well, it seems like regardless of your gender, that privacy is pretty important.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Especially because the shift isn't just like, we're not talking an 8-hour shift here.
Right. You're there
this is
24
days.
hours. Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Others.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Toni, can you speak, and this is kind of in the context of your journey, about challenges you may have faced moving up into leadership, and any range of challenges, specifically because you're a woman?
So, there always, there have been challenges from the very beginning, being in a field that's dominated by men, and me as a woman. But I can think of a lot of my leadership challenges, or I say the challenges that as a chief that I've experienced. I've had people, vendors, call and even come by the fire station, and they want to speak with the fire chief. And I said, okay, whether they get me right away or they get me later, I was like, well, how can I help you? And they'll say, no, I'm here to see the fire chief. I have some, things I would like for the fire chief to consider, and I'm here to talk to him. I said, okay, well, how can I help you? I'm the fire chief. They said, no. I want to talk to the fire chief.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. I was like, okay. Because, a lot of people have the chief title, but they're deputy chiefs, they're assistant chief. So he's like, no, I want to talk to the fire chief. I said, okay, well, I am the fire chief. How can I help you? And some of my subordinates would come around because, when vendors come around, I have certain people tasked with different responsibility. So I have somebody with equipment, different things. So they usually like to come around to make sure that, if it's something that they need to address, then they're there. I don't have to yell for them. So I had one of my captains walking up as I was talking to a vendor, and he was saying, "No, I want to talk to the fire chief." So I said, "I am the fire chief." And when my subordinate walked up, and I don't know if he just really didn't want to accept that I was the fire chief, or he did not hear me clearly. I'm not really sure. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. But immediately when my subordinate came up, he just immediately started talking to my subordinate, who was a white male, and just totally overlooked me. Yeah, totally overlooked me. And so
That's so frustrating.
yeah, it is. It is. But I knew after getting into the job, the fire service, I knew that I would have a lot of barriers and obstacles, and I knew that this probably would be one. I just didn't realize that it would be as bad as it was. So I said, okay, if you feel more comfortable talking to that person, I'm gonna go away and I'm going to go in my office. I got a lot of things to do. It's okay. So I walked away. And so then the captain came back and said, "Chief, you really need to talk to this guy. I can't make this decision." And I was like, well, he wanted to talk to the fire chief. I was there, and he decided that he rather talk to you. So I'm going to let him talk to you. So again, I had the last say. So of course, I did not use that vendor. I did not entertain that vendor. He didn't want to entertain me. So I said, okay, it's okay. So I didn't get upset. I just moved forward, and I'm not sure if I had to buy the type of product that he was offering or not. But I did know that was not a vendor that I would consider.
Yeah. Well, consequences, right?
Yeah. And, some of the challenges, another challenge that I deal with so often, going to different trainings, I'm often the only female in the training with leaders, fire service leaders. And, guys get accustomed to saying what they want when it's an all male audience. And so I deal with, I still to this day, I still deal with a lot of having people ignore the fact that I'm in the room, that there's a female in the room, and there's certain things you should not say. There's certain terms you should not use. So I still constantly deal with stuff like that, which is not good, because I found that, a lot of times when we as women bring things to their attention, they always want to say, "Oh, here goes that female with all of this stuff. This is why we don't need females in the fire service. We always have to deal with stuff. We're just, talking, and this is what we have been doing for the last 100 years. Now we have females, and you're telling me I have to change who I am? No, you have to be respectable in the workplace. And we're not asking you to do anything that you should not have been doing even before we got here."
Yes.
So, yeah. So, again, I don't let the barriers, the obstacles, or even those challenges skew my view of moving forward and doing what I need to do. Sometimes I do have to sit back and take a couple of breaths to move forward in the right way and not say the wrong thing, because I do believe that how you communicate your message is very important. Because I could be angry and I could, act like them, but that's not professional. That's not the right way. And if I'm going to educate them to show them a different way of doing business, I have to make sure that my message is communicated the right way. Otherwise, the same thing is going to continue to happen.
Absolutely.
Do you feel that as a woman, you bring particular gifts and skills and abilities and approaches to the position that a man would not necessarily bring?
I do, because women, we are nurturers. We have a compassionate side, and we we was raised to take care of everybody. So I think that I bring that nurturer element that traditionally that you don't see from men. And I won't say no man has it. I'm not saying that. And I'm not saying that some don't even have some of that. But traditionally, women, we have that instinct of taking care of people and giving people opportunities. And I say opportunities, you know, we tend to be good listeners, or I will speak for myself. I will sit down, I'll listen, I will consider another side of the story. And I know that, you know, my way is always not the right way. And yes, I am the one that wears the 5 bugles and I have the last say, but I still treat people like they're human. And I understand that mistakes can happen and that we can learn from our mistakes. But again, it goes back to that communication piece of how you deal with the issues or the challenges that you're faced with employed human relations. I say that.
I have 1,000 questions. Go for it, Trace.
Okay. So I wanted to talk a little bit about mentorship because, you know, as you said, you often find yourself as being the only woman leader in the room with a bunch of chiefs. I read in 2019, you hosted your first ever fire camp for young women.
Yeah, so I had the opportunity to be part of the first ever girls fire camp in the state of Georgia.
Oh, wow.
For women. Yes. Actually, the city of Atlanta was the host of the camp, and they asked me to be their special guest. And I was their special guest from the very beginning. So I was able to help them, or I was able to assist them with putting the camp together, as well as the implementation of the camp. So they really gave me a huge opportunity because in Georgia, we don't have any girls camp. And for Atlanta to have the financial backing to be able and the personnel to be able to host this camp was awesome.
Yeah.
And all I had to do was come in there and give my ideas, lend a hand here and there, and really get involved with the women and show them a different side. And although we would love for the young ladies to consider the fire service as a viable career option, our main goal was to give them some true life skills that would help them be successful in whatever they decided to do.
Right.
So it was awesome.
Yeah.
That sounds awesome.
I know. So you show up in your uniform and how old were these?
Was 11th and 12th graders.
Okay. So you got 11th and 12th graders, and here you are all decked out in your uniform. That's got to make an impression. Like, here's something I can do, right?
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, we really showed them opportunities that they may not have seen in their daily lives. You know, we had women leaders there. We had women firefighters there. We had all different ranks from firefighters all the way up to the fire chief. And we interacted with them. We gave them some really good life skills. We showed them a little bit of what we do. We talked to them about staying out of trouble, all kind of things. And, you know, for them, I mean, we had some really emotional experiences that, you know, I will never forget. And I'm sure some of them won't either. It was really very hard to measure and really explain to other people, you know, how much the camp meant to all of us. You know, I think we as women in the fire service, we got just as much out of the camp as they did.
How many women attended that camp?
We had about, I want to say, 13 young ladies, and we probably had through the course of the week about 17 women in the fire service assisting.
Would you be willing to chat about challenges you've faced because you're African American?
Yes. You know, everybody always asks me, wow, it must be tough being a woman fire chief. And not only that, you're African American. So you have that double whammy. And, there are many challenges that I face as one of a few African American or Black women fire chiefs. There have only been 9 of us in the history of the United States today.
Wow.
Yeah, only 9 of us. And I was number 3. I was the third, I'm sorry, number 4. I was the 4th one appointed in the US back in 2009. Right now, we have 4 active women fire chiefs, maybe 5. I think I just found out about one more, 5. We have one in Portland, one in Prince George's County, another one here in Georgia, in South Georgia, and then I want to say another one in Missouri, if I'm not mistaken. So it's 5 of us active now. But some of the challenges that I have experienced is, first of all, not everybody can work for a woman in the fire service, because we as women, we make up, career women in the fire service, we make up about 3% of the fire service, and we have over 400,000 firefighters. And we only make up 3% of that.
Yeah.
Okay? That's total from all ranks. And then when you get to women fire chiefs, I want to say the figure I got was 0.03% of that.
No, I was going to say there's got to be a decimal in front of that number.
Yes. It's even lower. Yeah. So not everyone can work, not every firefighter can work for a woman. But I found that it's even worse if you're a Black woman. And I have been a part of a lot of recruiting processes where we get hundreds and hundreds of applications for people to be firefighters. I mean, a lot of people want to be a firefighter, We work 10 days out the month, we serve the public. Is a very rewarding job. And, we still have pensions, which most private companies don't have pensions now. Yeah. So, lots of people want to be firefighters. So we get hundreds of applications. And my first experience of putting a firefighter job posting out, and I didn't even get 100 people apply.
Oh my goodness.
And it dwindled down even more after they have the interview, and I'm not part of the interview panel, but I sit in on the interview and I take notes. Because the interview panel will recommend who moves to the next phase, which is the final interview with me. So I like to sit in and take notes. And the list gets even smaller when it's time to come to my office, when they find out that the leader is a Black woman. So I've had my challenges with recruitment as being a Black woman fire chief. And that's not something I ever thought that I would be up against. But it happens. It's happening. And that's one of those things that, I can't fix. I'm Black. I'm not going to change who I am. I'm a woman. I'm going to be a woman. And, so it's just something that I can't help. And it's not something I'm even willing to change. So, I like to say that I get the best people,
Yes.
And I get the best people for my community, because the world is very diverse. And if you aren't willing to accept diversity in your life, then in the city of Decatur, we have no place for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amen.
So it may be a challenge, but, looking back on it, it's probably a good challenge.
Do you think that some of that is because of where you are? I mean, I lived in Atlanta for 2 years, and being in a southern town, do you think that is also influencing people applying and because of who you are?
I don't. I think it's just because of the fire profession and just the traditional stuff.
Being very masculine.
Yes, that, as well as, the fire service has really been a career for a long, long, long time that served majority white males.
Yes.
And that's just been the face of the fire service. And now that there's been some integration and you have different people, and the fire service is still rough for minorities to advance in the fire service and be accepted. We all have to do a lot more than what some of our peers do to prove ourselves, to show that we are more than capable of being in the position and doing a great job, which is very unfortunate. But, we still deal with that today.
That's true. Well, it's unfair, right? It's
Yes.
that you shouldn't have to give 120% to be accepted.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
I imagine word has perhaps painfully slowly gotten out that you are simply highly effective at what you do and that your team is highly effective. Has that improved the applicant pool and the size of the pool over the years? Or is it still just as challenging?
It's still just as challenging because, you can't change people. You can't change who people really are. Now, we can mentor, we can change how you do things to help you do things better. But, I can't change someone that's a racist. I can't change anyone that feels like, a woman does not have a place in the fire service, and certainly not the fire chief. So I can't change those attitudes. I can change some behaviors, but I can't change attitudes, and I can't change who people really are.
Yeah.
So it has not gotten better for me with the recruitment. I still have challenges as it relates to recruitment. But again, it takes me a little longer, but I still get the best of the best. And that's why I have the awesome crew that I have now.
Yeah. How many firefighters do you have?
I have 55 total. I have 40 full-time, and I have 15 part-time.
Okay. Toni, I'm sure you've got this answer down cold because you've done this a number of times. But what do you say? And to our listeners, some of whom at least are younger women, what do you say to them as far as what to expect and how to navigate getting into leadership? How do you inspire them?
I like to say that, I always encourage women to join the team as we all shatter this glass ceiling that's been in place for so long. If you aspire to be a leader, you have to have a plan. You have to have short-term goals. You have to have long-term goals. You have to create that roadmap that's going to take you where you aspire or where you want to go. And you have to work that plan, understanding that there will be barriers, there's going to be obstacles, there are going to be challenges that come before you, but you have to move straight through them. And when you get that barrier that knocks you back on your butt, you go back, you assess, you analyze, you get up, and you go forward again, and you keep going until you shatter that ceiling. And then you go to the next ceiling, and you just keep going, and you keep going, because whatever you aspire to do or whatever you aspire to be, you can get there. It's not going to be easy, but you can get there. And you build a strong support and network system behind you so they can push and encourage you and guide you so that you can attain and be efficient at whatever you set your mind out to be or do.
Mm-hmm. You said that your parents have encouraged you. Have you had others who have got your back and have helped you?
Oh, yes. I have so many networking and so many groups of people that, I like to call them my cheerleaders. My family has just been so supportive. My parents, all three of them, when I decided I was going to be a firefighter, I don't think they were that happy about it. Yes, it was a dangerous job, and they thought that I was going to do other things, but they still supported me, as well as my grandparents. And so it started there, and I'm one of 9 children. So it's a lot of us. So my siblings have been, we have our own little team, have been so supportive, as well as my husband and my daughters. And I don't think without them, I would have made it as far as I've gotten and been able to retain or stay in the position as fire chief. Like I said, I've been in this position for 11 years, and it has its stresses as well as the challenges. And, I don't think that I would have been effective or could be effective if I didn't have them, the foundation that they have provided for me. I like to say that, I have this house and my family is the foundation. I have an awesome city manager, Andrea Arnold, who has been very supportive of me as the fire chief. At first, she was the assistant city manager, and now she's our city manager. And I was under her when she was the assistant city manager. And so, she has been so supportive. So I have a very core group in my supervisor, as well as some of my peers in the city of Decatur, which include other department directors and other assistant city managers that, I think that I need every one of those layers to be successful, because I have my family, I have my coworkers, I have my fire family, and then I have my friends. And in order for me to be successful and to have had the success that I've had, I needed all of those groups to make it happen. Because being in a male-dominated field, there's so many different things that you go through, that you experience, and each group brings a different support system to my life. And so they're all integral parts of me being an effective and efficient leader. And I look back now and I don't feel like I could have done it if one of those groups weren't there for me.
Yeah.
I think that speaks to your strength. Effective leaders have a level of humility whereby they understand who they need. And if you don't, you're not as good a leader. You have a lot of strength as a leader. And
Well, thank you. Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you. I always tell the firefighters and the people that I mentor, I don't know everything. I don't claim to know everything. But I think it's important that I am grounded and I understand that at one point I started from the very beginning, and to get where I am, I had to learn. I had to educate myself. I had to get guidance. I had to build my network, and that I never forget where I came from.
Hmm.
I never will forget where I came from. And so when I'm dealing with people, whether it's that I'm managing, leading, guiding, supervising them, it doesn't matter. I look at them as humans, and I don't think because I wear or I have more bugles on my collar than they do, that I know more than them. And I think that that's another thing that we as women bring, that humility, or that, everybody's a person, and everybody's important. And I'm not going to foster or hold the knowledge because most people feel like knowledge is power. I'm going to share, because in order for me to be great, I need for them to be great.
Hmm.
And I can't shine if the people under me aren't doing an awesome job. And that's what I like about all the firefighters that I work with is they work their butts off. And I tell them all the time, I'm just the face. If you guys didn't do what you do, you men and women didn't do what you do, then nobody would want to talk to me.
Mm.
So yeah, nobody would want to talk to me. So
I talk to you.
I know.
so I like to say yes. It took me a long time to say, and I had a professional coach and Renee Madison, who is the city's communications manager. She, as well as Linda Harris, have always worked with me and encouraged me to say, you have to tell your story, because for so long I was just embarrassed to really tell my story and say that, I was one of a few African American female fire chiefs in the country and the nation and the US for sure. And it was just, for me, it was just embarrassing to say it. And they have gotten me to the point where I can say now that, hey, my name is Toni Washington. I am the fire chief of the city of Decatur, and I am good at what I do.
I can't clap. It would blow out the microphone. I'm mentally clapping. I do have one quick question, kind of as an aside, because you said you were one of 7 that were hired. Were you all hired at the same time?
Yes, we were all hired. We were the first 7 women hired in the city of East Point.
So who was running the show that finally woke up enough to go, hey, I should hire these gals?
The fire chief was Ronnie Few at the time, and he was determined to hire women. Even hearing about, and now going back, I was a little naive back then. I was a lot younger and didn't realize that, all the things that were happening, that it was a ploy to keep the women from being hired. Before we got there, the spouses of the firefighters there, which were all male, the male firefighters, so their spouses were all female. Mm-hmm. They had meetings with the city council, with the fire chief, to really keep us out, because they said we were going to be in there sleeping with their husbands, all kind of stuff. Yeah. Our applications were lost. Some of us had to go back and retest for our health screenings. I mean, it was just a total mess. Wow. But Ronnie Few, was determined to hire us. So he hired 7 of us. We all started and we all graduated. And the top 2 positions, the top 2 highest scores in the class were women. Yeah. Nice. Out of a class of 15. Yeah.
Wow.
Right on. Nice work.
Yeah.
Toni, thank you for your service and doing what you're doing. You guys are on the front lines and you make so many good things happen for people.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Going through the challenging time that the world is going through right now, it's always good to hear that.
Yeah.
The firefighters, and, I talk to them all the time, they're really out there working hard. To be a firefighter, you really have to have a heart of gold and be willing to serve, because they're putting themselves in situations that are dangerous. Mm-hmm. And, many people nowadays are running away from, and they're running to make sure that, if they can, they save every life that we could possibly save. So, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Toni, can we ask you just one more question?
Sure.
This has been a very fast hour. Trace, do you want to ask it?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Toni, what are you most hopeful for regarding women of color in leadership in America today?
What I'm most hopeful for, that more women will take steps to move in the direction that they aspire or hope to be in, and not be scared to challenge the obstacles that they're faced with to get where they want to go. I hear so often that, a lot of them feel like they're not ready. And I think that has been brainwashed into women to feel like they're not ready, that they have to have so much before they get there when it's not the same with males. So I hope that we will get to a point where we're not convinced that we need to have it down pat or be experts at what we do before we get there. Because there is a learning curve, and I tell them all the time, I still don't know everything that there is to know, but I know I need to surround myself with good, knowledgeable people that are experts in different areas. And I hope that one day women will say, okay, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to do this. And when I experience an obstacle or challenge, I'm going to move past it. I'm going to shatter that glass ceiling and I'm going to keep going.
I would work for Toni in a heartbeat.
Oh, me too. Absolutely.
Obviously, she really has incredible capacity as a leader. We all heard she's faced off with quite a few challenges and overcome them, and just very inspiring.
I think my takeaway from talking with her is, with the world being what it is right now, having a leader who respects her team and who stands in front and says, I'm taking responsibility and I am leading. I mean, that's powerful. And
yeah,
I'm so glad she took some time right now, with everything being what it is, to share some of her story with us.
Yeah, this felt precious. And they're on the front lines. The work that they're doing, 90% of fire department calls are aid calls and, medical aid. And she mentioned, of course, that many of those calls right now are related to COVID-19. The risks that her staff are taking are huge. And I wouldn't want somebody else in leadership given those circumstances.
Yeah, I agree. In order to keep bringing you fascinating interviews like this one with Chief Toni Washington, we now have a link to Patreon on our website, takingherlead.blueberry.net. That's BLUBRRY. Any contribution that you feel like you could make would go towards our operating costs and help us reach out to more women in leadership.
Absolutely. And you can also find us on Twitter at @her_taking. And the podcast is on LinkedIn.
For all the women who are in leadership and all of those of you who want to be, our hats off to you. This is Trace Kerr.
And this is Joshua Everett Mayer.
Talk to you soon.